Hey, Frugal Firearms podcast listeners. Today we have the first part of a two-part series that we recorded with Jeff Goldstein of High Value Training Academy, as well as his other business of brassbuyers.com. Since his show covered two separate topics, we decided to split this into two episodes. So first you're going to hear from Jeff talking about High Value Training Academy, and then in a future episode down the road, you'll hear him discuss brassbuyers.com. So listen in, enjoy, and remember, always like, subscribe, comment, and tell your friends.
You should have to submit your completion certificate for basic pistol, basic rifle with your 1099 every year. Like you shouldn't get your tax refund until you prove that you have basic firearms training. Because I can't think of two things that are more American than getting your tax refund and civilian firearm training.
Welcome to episode 24 of the Frugal Firearms podcast, the podcast that is designed from the ground up to help you get the most for your shooting dollar, help you spend money wisely, and help you get the most enjoyment out of your shooting experience. But part of that experience comes down to what? Training. So today is a show dedicated to the value proposition of training and why that has to be part of your investment strategy when it comes to shooting. And additionally, our guest today also owns another business that has not a darn thing to do with training. Well, maybe it does if you reload, and we'll get into that later. But first off, I'm going to mention that it's important for you guys. I mean, if you like the show, want you to tell your friends, but you need to subscribe. You need to like the show. You need to share it. You need to leave comments. You need to do those things because we're putting in the hard work to get you a good product. And the way that we get a better product is by getting better guests. And how do we get better guests? By growing the audience. And how do we grow the audience? We grow the audience by having you guys help out the algorithms to get us the notoriety that we need. And, since the last episode, Ken, welcome to the show, my co-host Ken. How many countries have we added to the listener base here?
It's surprising. I mean, we're worldwide. I think you got the latest stats on it, but we're now worldwide listened to.
Yeah, we have new listeners in Singapore and Costa Rica, the Philippines, and thank you for joining in Canada. Maybe they'll get better laws some days. Finland and Brazil, South Africa, and of all places, Colombia. That was a bit of a surprise. I'm kind of thinking that maybe sometime soon, maybe we'll get listeners in Venezuela and perhaps a actual Republic of the People in Iran. That would be kind of cool too. Although I think that Iran's probably some distance away from having a Second Amendment like ours.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we have Jeff Goldstein, who is from High Value Training Academy. He is the founder. He's also the owner of brassbuyers.com, and we're going to talk about both of those businesses. Most of the show is going to center on his training efforts. And he, by the way, folks, has a very unique model because if you look at his site, which is, by the way, highvaluetraining.org, you scroll down the list of classes and you think, yeah, this class looks pretty good. And then you look at the cost and the cost says zero. And you're like, huh? What do you mean cost is zero? So we're going to bring Jeff on to explain how his business operates and why it's fundamentally different than others and why it is absolutely at the center of a value proposition. So Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
So go ahead and why don't you, just right out of the gate, like I said, a couple businesses here that are kind of unique, but what's your background, including your original story of High Value Training Academy, and then later we'll circle back into the brassbuyers.com site.
It actually came together relatively quickly. So years ago, I decided that I wanted to go down the path of formalizing becoming a firearms instructor. And to be honest, I didn't really know anything about that. I know that if you go to a range, they have instructors. I'm sure that, I'm just going through my mental process. I'm sure There are law enforcement people that do instruction. I'm sure there are military veterans who do instruction, but I'm neither of those. And so I really didn't know much about civilian firearms instruction, so I just started doing research. And probably luckily, the very first place I found was the NRA website. It's kind of wordy. There's a lot of paragraphs there, but they describe if you want to become a civilian firearms instructor, how you would go about doing that. And then there's some links to begin taking classes. And so through the process of taking classes, I kind of got tricked, and I'll explain that to you here in just a second. But through the process of taking classes, I went through the curriculum initially to become certified pistol instructor. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how do I turn this into a business? Now, here's where the trick came in. The very first NRA instructor I ever had who taught the basics of pistol shooting student course, he is somebody I still have great contact with today, and he's an excellent instructor. And I went to his class, and there were probably 30 students in the class. I don't know, maybe 25 students. I'm looking around and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's this unlimited demand for these courses. I'm going to become an instructor and I'm always going to have 25 or 30 people in the class. Then when I went to take my basics pistol shooting instructor class, I think there were like 8 of us in that class. And then all of a sudden it hit me, oh, wait a minute, where's the 25, 30 people that I thought were going to be in here? And so, right, so then all of a sudden I'm thinking, wait, where are all the people? What happened to this unlimited demand I thought I was walking into? I started talking to the NRA training counselor that I was working with, and I asked him, just for advice because I'm not ashamed to say there's something I don't know and to ask questions about it. So I started asking, how do you build a business around this? And he gave me some suggestions. And one of the suggestions he gave me was you may want to consider being a nonprofit, setting up as a nonprofit. And uh, so I asked, well, what's the benefit of being a nonprofit? And he said, look around this room. You see these projectors, you see these tables, these chairs, the furniture that's in here, my desk. He said, when you're a nonprofit, you might be able to get your hands on the things that you need to set up a training school more cost effectively, or even receive donations from places. There's some business going out of business, and they have tables and chairs that they just need to get out of the room. And maybe they'll be willing to donate it to you if you give them a thank you letter for the value of their donation, things like that. So in my head, I was thinking, okay, so that's an option. Um, and what really pushed me in the direction of nonprofit was the COVID pandemic and some of the unfortunate events that unfolded during pandemic times that led to a lot of quote unquote peaceful protests or riots or whatever. And I'm looking at a couple pieces of data. One is the statistics that are published on how many guns are sold every year. Then also, how many of those guns are sold to new gun owners? And we know that from people who are first time 4473 applicants. And so we have this new gun quantity, we have this new gun owner quantity. And then I'm looking at, I'm watching the news and I'm thinking, gosh, I bet there's people that are going out and buying these probably guns for concealed carry purposes, and they're never going to a training class. I need to get in front of these people. I want to be able to offer my services to them, to help them at least get their start, right? So most of our customers are new shooters, beginner shooters, some intermediate shooters, but mostly new and beginner shooters. And it just felt like the right thing to do. And so I started going down the path of forming a nonprofit organization and then applying for 501c3 status with the IRS. And we just keep building it. Then we got a website, right? I mean, this is all grassroots, scratching and clawing. It's, generous donations from friends and family to get this thing off the ground, right?
I mean, your website's pretty good. I think that you've done, a good job of at least, the face of the company is a pretty good one. And the amount of variety there is pretty impressive too.
We have a phenomenal website developer. I met him through a local small business organization where I live, and he did brass buyers. And I had a vision in my head for brass buyers. I know we're going to get to that later. But I had a vision in my head for how I wanted brass buyers to work. And that is actually a very complicated website. So I know a lot of people will use those newer, like self-service websites where you can, sign up and subscribe and you create your own website and they look beautiful and they're based on templates. They're easy to manage. That is not my websites. Brass Buyers was actually a very complicated website because it gives people the ability to both buy and sell. And if you think about it, not a lot of websites have a sell option. They all have a buy option, but very few
Right.
of them have a sell option. And so I went back to him and I said, "Hey, what do you think about doing another website for high value training?" And I said, "This is going to be a very basic website compared to Brass Buyers." And he was, us being a nonprofit, he was very generous with his time. We did pay him, but we're very fortunate to have him as our web developer because he doesn't charge us a lot of money to keep the website going. And so it's good. There we do have a wish list for it, to be fair, that we're working through, but we understand that those things are also going to come at a cost.
So what makes you a, I mean, I guess you kind of talked about the motivation to become an instructor and set it up as a nonprofit, which I seems to be a good idea, honestly, the way you did it. But what makes you qualified to do this? I mean, obviously you have the NRA certification and you probably have some degree of experience now that how would you differentiate yourself from other trainers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I think it's very difficult to differentiate the qualifications for a firearms instructor who's instructing new and beginning shooters, because you're not really leveraging the instructor's full skill set for that, right? You're leveraging the basic skill set that I would think most firearms instructors will have. What I like to say is my differentiator, and I think this plays into the idea of the nonprofit, is that I like to teach. So I do a little bit of teaching at my full-time job. I teach college courses part-time, teach business school courses part-time for a local college, face-to-face, not online stuff, like, standing in a classroom in front of 20 students. I'm very student outcome focused. And so that also helps me personally rationalize operating as a nonprofit because profit is not my primary motivator for doing this. I think we should all have some sort of calling and that we, give our time to, whatever it is in your community, your church, your synagogue, or whatever. And so I'm almost too focused on the student outcomes, or I may even give a little bit more of my time than I should sometimes.
Well, that's not a bad thing. I mean, if you're trying to produce better, safer shooters, I think that that's, very laudable of you to do that. But, you also aren't in this as necessarily a charity. I mean, maybe there's charitable aspects of 501c3 organizations, but you also incur real costs. So you're going to have a methodology by which you at least cover your expenses, and perhaps you put in some of your own income from your quote unquote day job, but at the same time, how do you actually keep it afloat and running?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. There's some aspects of a 501c3 that are charitable contributions, and there are some that are not. So, for example, a course fee. So, if we're going to do NRA basics of pistol shooting, and students are going to pay a course fee to come, that is not a charitable donation to our organization. That's a course fee. Now we do through fundraising subsidize our courses. I'm just curious, out in where you guys are in California, like
Huh.
what would a new shooter pay to take NRA basics of pistol shooting?
Most of what we would take is really, if I'm not going for something like TACCON, which I'm going to, but that's in
Right.
Dallas, and that's a maybe a different animal. Most of the trainers that I follow, you'd probably be into $400 to $600 for a couple day
Yeah.
course. If you're talking about an NRA specific course, I don't know. The courses that we have to take are periodic CCW classes, and
hmm
those are a couple hundred, and those are
hmm
biannual.
So for us, just through donations, we're able to get the cost down of NRA basics of pistol shooting down to 80 to $85.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that includes your instruction, the mandatory books that the NRA says we have to buy and give to you. That includes your range time. It does not include your ammo, but it does include, if you want, the use of our student pistols. So if you have your own pistol, you can bring it. If you want to rent one at the range that's interesting to you, you can do that. Or you can use ours. But there is a cost for the ammo, whether you bring it or you buy it at the course, doesn't really matter. But we're not providing the ammo, at least for pistol class. I'm a person that believes that like you should have to submit your completion certificate for basic pistol, basic rifle with your 1099 every year. Like you shouldn't get your tax refund until you prove that you have basic firearms training. Because I can't think of two things that are more American than getting your tax refund and civilian firearm training.
If
So,
it doesn't happen in 2026, I think it's not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah,
right.
I would
Right,
be,
right, right.
yeah, I think you're reaching into a future that we all hope for, but probably, at least in California, we're not going to see that. Maybe in
No.
Ohio, you have and by the way, listeners, I didn't mention that Jeff is in Ohio. So if you're, if
Mhm.
you're in the Ohio area, obviously we're going to recommend that you train with him directly. But if not, Jeff, are there other organizations that are similarly comprised that are nationwide that I mean, I don't mean one organization nationwide, but are there other locations where businesses like yours exist?
So, that's kind of an interesting one. So, I go back to the comment I made about thinking about being a civilian firearms training organization as a nonprofit. I got that idea from somebody else. So, I know these organizations do exist, but I think they're a little bit more difficult to find. That, like, if you Google, firearm training in my area, you're not going to come up with a list of nonprofits first. Oh, can I double back to something we were talking about a minute ago? I forgot to make
Sure.
my second point.
Of course you can.
Yeah, so course fees are not charitable donations. They are course fees. However, we also do community events, and I think we're going to expand on that here in a little bit. But our community events are monthly right now. We have all of 2026 scheduled, and these events are literally free to attend. Are events for the community, and we focus on a topic. So we may do, like what we're doing next week, a 2 hour small group rifle lesson. So I have a bunch of rifles that students use in our full day courses. If you want to learn how to shoot a rifle, just like you might go to a shooting range to learn how to shoot anything, we'll be there at the range and you can join our event at no cost. As you mentioned, it's on the website. Also, the website does ask, would you like to make a donation? And you don't have to. You can participate without a donation, or you could make a donation. Now, in those cases, those are charitable donations. And at the end of the year, we will send you a thank you letter for the total value of any charitable donations that you made to us, whether you attended an event or not.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the community events that are ostensibly a charity, the way they're being comprised, are no cost events, but people could at those events make a donation or through the website. are there other methods by which maybe sponsorships from various corporations or things like that? Because I'm imagining that there might be other people in the audience who are listening who operate ranges that or training companies that maybe are successful and maybe not so much, and they might want to essentially copy your model.
Yeah, so we do ask for support from the community. I don't really want to name names, but let me start here. We have a board member whose primary responsibilities is fundraising. So we're actually doing a lot of planning right now here in January. We're going to roll out some fun events over the course of the year. We'd like to do a turkey shoot in the fall. We may do like some sort of trap event. These are brainstorming ideas, by the way. I mean, none of this is scheduled yet. We may participate in other events that are not specifically high value training, but high value training may, be part of an event, like have a table or, be a charitable sponsor or something like that for events. We're thinking about spaghetti dinners, all kinds of. And then we do reach out to companies in the 2A space to ask for donations specific to an event. I don't want to get too heavy into the things that we've asked for or received because we've received some things from some companies that have been very generous, and we do thank them when we get those. But I don't want to like convey the idea that, well, if you set up a charity, like all these companies are just going to throw their stuff at you. That's not true. You do
Yeah,
have to do things
as
like.
we in the podcast industry have learned, they're not beating your door down.
Well, even if you ask, sometimes they'll say no. So here's an example. We want to do a holster draw class, and we don't want to do a live fire holster draw class. When we do holster draw classes, which are special events, some of those classes are dry fire only, and some of those classes are live fire. We do not take new students into a live fire holster draw class, right? So there's some level of, you've participated with us before, we're familiar with you, you've taken some of our NRA courses up beyond basic pistol shooting. Like, for example, personal protection in the home, the course of fire there, you can't be a new shooter and do that course of fire. So if you've done those things, you might come to our holster draw class. We reached out to some holster companies. We have, training
Blue
pistols
guns.
like blue
Yep.
guns
Yep.
that you can use to learn holster draw
Yes.
that it's a completely safe way to do holster draw. So we reached out to some holster companies, and again, I don't want to name names, and said, hey, we would love it if you could donate some of your most basic uh, G17 holsters,
Yep.
um, because we want to teach this class, and we explained it all. Every single one of them turned us down,
Huh.
right?
Really? Huh.
And I'll tell you what we ended up doing, which I thought was actually better, is we went out and bought some what's that scuba diver suit material, neoprene?
Neoprene.
Neoprene. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we went out and bought some neoprene belly bands
Oh, yeah.
in a couple different sizes, and we decided, you know what, we're going to use those instead because people can come in their joggers or their jeans or their slacks and button down shirt from work or whatever, and they can wrap one of these belly bands around what they're wearing right now and put one of our training pistols into the holster of that belly band. And so instead of getting dedicated outside the waistband holsters, and using a specific pattern for our training pistols, our blue guns. Now we can train with any size gun. If we have a blue gun revolver, we can still use the belly band. So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah, we decided to do that. And you know what? Those didn't cost very much. And so we do get some cash donations, not a lot. We're not we don't have a lot. We don't have a war chest, I guess. But, to buy a few of those belly bands was no big deal. We did that.
Yeah, I have been fortunate to receive some extra holsters from law enforcement friends of mine who no longer use them, or they're switching to a different
Hmm.
gun or something. And surprisingly, on a lot of pistols, of a variety of different manufacturer pistols will fit into the same holster pretty well. Not all of them, and not every pistol, but I've gotten quite a few nice, very functional holsters that way. So
We have had a few offers for that, and we'll probably end up with a few of those here soon. But I think those are a little bit of a challenge for what we're trying to accomplish with people who are just learning holster draw.
yeah.
So, for example, a friend of High Value Training has offered one of his older Safariland L3 duty holsters,
Oh yeah.
which is phenomenal. I mean, that's, we're not going to go out and buy one of those. But
As
also
long as
that,
it's not a Serpa pattern, right?
well, it's its retention is on the light. So
Yeah.
the tricky part is do we have a training pistol pattern with that light that, is going to work functionally? And that's really not the holster that we're going to teach for new holster draw
Right.
class. So while we absolutely love getting those things and will use them, right? That's not our primary customer.
Do you try to avoid the Serpa pattern, and other ones like it that use the index finger to release the gun? I know that's a lot of ranges, just you're not using that on our range. I mean, they're very black and white about that.
Yeah.
So we're not teaching drawing through retention, at least not right now. We're teaching just drawing either with the belly bands that we have or with some of the basic OWB holsters that we can get our hands on. Is it okay to mention a product?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, well, caveat for the listeners, and I failed to mention this up front. Okay, so we've never trained with you, and normally our rules of engagement are that we have to be familiar with the product, and or the trainer or the service or whatever to be on this show, which is kind of a de facto endorsement. But since you and I talked, and since your business model is so different, that's why you're on the show. I mean, heck, the name of your organization, High Value Training Academy, sort of makes it a natural fit with what
Right.
we're doing. But the same thing here. I mean, you mentioning something is you endorsing it. It's not us endorsing it. So you can
Yeah.
mention anybody you want.
Okay, so I guess I should mention as we were thinking about names for high value training, just leaning on that idea of high quality student outcomes is one of the things that led us to the name that we selected. But the product I want to mention is from We the People holsters. They make something called the Freedom holster.
Yeah,
And it's not the first holster that you'll see on their website. You have to look for it. But the reason we like it for training is because as long as you have the correct pattern pistol, whether it's an M&P or a Glock or whatever, the Freedom holster, for those that aren't aware, can be converted into literally thousands of different configurations. So it is a chunky holster, but it can be left-handed or right-handed. It can be OWB or IWB. You can use it with a paddle. You can use it with belt loops. You can use it with hooks. And it comes with all of those accessories in the box. So as a training tool, we really feel like that's a great value because it's so versatile for us. So I can have two students, one left-handed, one right-handed, come to a holster draw class where we're using the Freedom holster and I can hand it to one of them and they can use it. And then with a Phillips head screwdriver, in 90 seconds, I can convert it between left-handed and right-handed and hand it to the other student. Now, would we like to just have lots of those? Of course we would. But just having the one is really nice. If somebody says, well, I've never drawn from inside the waistband. Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me pull out my Phillips screwdriver and I'll switch it from OWB to IWB. And you can, with our blue guns, our training pistols, you can try it.
And for those people who don't know, that's outside the waistband and inside the waistband, OWB and IWB. I know some of our listeners may not be familiar with that phrase, which is common in holsters. But anyway, I just want to
Right,
point that
right.
out.
Thanks, Ken. No, I appreciate it. But I think what's not common, a holster that literally can be converted between the two and be converted between left-handed and right-handed
Right.
and, how you wear it on your belt and everything. So there's a lot of flexibility. So we do enjoy that product.
That's a company that we hope to get on at some point. We haven't yet, but there's another one too that I'll just mention for as a fairly generic holster that has a really unique retention system is Mission First Tactical. Their Pro Series uses a rod and a magnet. So the rod goes down the barrel, and then the magnet at the end of the rod secures the weapon. And they have ones that accommodate weapon-mounted lights. And they're while they say that they're, dedicated toward a certain combination of gun and light, it turns out that they're a little bit more generic than that in application. And they work fantastically too. I mean, it's not a security retention, device. It, for
Sure.
like law enforcement, but for everyday user, it's a great item. Ken, you had something.
No, no, I just say, I know, Craig, you and I need to work on my holster design sometime, which we won't have to talk about here, but great
Yeah,
fun.
Ken has a unique idea that fits a certain segment of the population that would actually be kind of cool. And I've seen him use his prototype, and I can't see that he's wearing anything. I mean, I'm looking all over him and I don't see it. So, and that was on a Ruger LCR, but that's
Yeah,
another story. So,
another story, yes.
Is that
yeah,
important in California? Like, so if you're printing or something, is that a problem in California?
Only if somebody reports you. I mean, because anybody can report you, say, he's got a gun. Okay, all right, and then the cops will come and they'll inquire. And if it's just something that, you're printing because you're wearing dip-on clothes, like some of the women walk around with these dip-on clothes. I call them dip-on because they're so tight. It looks like liquid painted on.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just
Yeah,
painted on
and
there.
that's a
Sure.
bad
yeah.
thing? You got a
Well,
problem with that? Well, maybe it
That's a
depends.
topic for a different podcast.
yeah,
It
it's a
depends.
different topic.
No,
But
I was going to just say that each state is a little bit different. When people ask me how do I carry, my answer is, well, here in Ohio, I do something called comfortable carry. I carry the gun that I'm most comfortable with and the holster I'm most comfortable with. I conceal it, but I don't really care if anybody sees it because we're an open carry state.
oh
If it
yeah.
happens to show a little bit, it's of no harm, no foul, as long as I'm in a place where you're legally allowed to carry, right? Because we do have those gun buster signs, in place.
And in California, a three-judge panel on the Ninth Circuit just said that California's preclusion against open carry was unconstitutional. Now,
Yeah.
that is being appealed and will be an en banc,
Decision, Ninth Circuit. Yeah.
yeah, before the entire Ninth Circuit. But it was interesting because I got a call the other day from phone rang. It's like, huh, what's that? It was the San Diego Sheriff's Office calling me. It's like, I wonder what they would be calling me for.
Right.
And they were calling me on behalf of a relative who applied for a CCW. And in her case, I'm the one who's been helping her along this path. And they called me as the character reference. And I'm like,
Cool.
kind of like, why are you doing that? Because, well, now it's required in California that that's a extra burden on the law enforcement community to be able to have an interview. And I got to talking to this guy on the side, and the sheriff's deputy was a big advocate of both open and concealed carry.
Yeah.
And, he's hoping that it goes through. And I asked him, I said, if open carry is found to be constitutional in California, which, I mean, parenthetically it is, but against the law, whatever, that's a separate conversation. Would I still need to apply for a CCW? Because, yeah, the way it would be now, you'd have to still have a CCW.
Yeah. The law that they just overturned, California had a law that basically said, oh, yeah, we allow open carry, but only if your county, and there are 58 counties in the state of California, only if your county has less than 200,000 people into it.
Oh,
That
good luck.
that live in the county. And of the 58 counties, I think it's like two or three of the very rural
Right.
counties have that. And then, of course, the judges on the panel of the Ninth Circuit said, okay, so basically 95 plus percent of the population in California is cannot open carry because they live in the county that number one has more than 200,000 people. And then they said, okay, of the three counties that are remaining, how many open carry licenses have ever been granted and there have been none, zero, zip. There have been no open carry licenses issued in the county. Plus, even if one was issued in that county, it's only valid in that county. The minute you'd step into a different county over the line to get a cheeseburger at the local whatever,
Yeah.
you'd be in violation. And
Reciprocity? Nah.
nah, not
Yeah.
even
Well,
within the state.
I
Right.
Yeah.
don't understand the big deal around open carry because Ohio has always been open carry, and you don't see people walking around with guns visible on their person. It's
It's a
just not
culture thing where if you, because you've had it and people know you've had it, people are acclimated to the idea that it's there. This is a little bit analogous to, for example, if you take a country that is not used to having freedom, and then all of a sudden you overthrow the dictator, recent example, and they are not familiar with democratic processes and
Mhm.
representative republics and how they operate. They struggle with this. And the same thing can happen in an open carry. Suddenly you go open carry. You know how many man with a gun calls there's going to be? And then you're like, okay, crap, I got to wait around for the cops to show up. Yeah, okay, I'm just exercising my constitutional right. Thanks, have a nice day.
And along those lines, there's the Babylon Bee, which is produces these videos. They're quite some of them are very humorous that are
Well,
out
it's
on the internet.
satirical as hell.
Satirical, yeah, satirical. The Babylon Bee has a series of videos of a California couple who moves to Texas, and the
Mhm.
neighbor comes by and is like, "How you doing?" And he's trying to introduce himself, and he's carrying open carrying a 45 1911 on his hip, and as soon as the wife sees it, she freaks out and whips out her cell phone and starts videoing, "Oh, don't shoot me," and all this stuff. He's like, "No, this is normal here. This is
Right, right.
Texas."
I saw the
Missouri, I
whole
think, is the
series.
same way.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
It is hilarious. I recommend those who are listening to us who haven't seen it, go look up Babylon Bee, Californians Move to Texas.
What skills do you teach, Jeff? What do you teach now? It sounds like some of it's, relatively basic in terms of at least the draw classes. And what are you kind of developing into teaching? And maybe differentiate for us which of those will be, no cost to the public ones and which one will be for cost.
Sure. So we teach a variety of different skills. So primarily we're teaching pistol and rifle skills, and it's primarily basic skills. As far as like, what certifications do I have from the NRA, I'm certified to teach pistol rifle personal protection in the home, which is more of an intermediate class. And I'm also chief range safety officer, so I can teach RSO. So there's a couple reasons for having that specific mix. I also volunteer with Boy Scouts of America. Last summer, I spent an entire week on their rifle range at scout camp at summer camp, and they need NRA rifle instructors and RSOs and chief RSOs involved in scouting because that's who Scouts uses to run their ranges. Scouts is very close with the NRA. So that mix works both from a high value training perspective and a personal volunteering perspective. What you would get from a full day course, like let's say basics of pistol shooting, basics of rifle shooting, is we're going to leverage the NRA curriculum for those courses. The NRA does an excellent job putting together a curriculum that is nationally recognized, that covers the things that need to be covered, that's been vetted by, just so many experts in the industry. And so it's a good one to leverage. The materials associated with it, like the books, are really good. And they even have a survey that you can fill out at the end. For example, this is the Appendix D for Basics of Pistol Shooting. You can ask your students to fill out a survey so you can get feedback on how you're doing. And you can, if I'm a data nerd myself, so I actually record all my survey scores and look for areas of improvement. And then again, we're really all about the student outcomes. So in my mind, I'm always thinking, there's really two kinds of training in my mind. There's the skills training. So there's the how do I train to have a skill, right? So, am I the best shooter in the room? I have no idea, right? But I have those basic skills that I've learned through courses that I've taken and continue to take. And then there's training to teach, which is a completely different skill set, right? What are the things that you need to absorb from other instructors? What are some of the nuances that you notice as your class is going on during the day? What types of questions are people asking you? Where do you get stuck on topics to improve the learning. So, for example, one of the things that we did to improve learning when teaching grip, I was finding that teaching new shooters how to properly grip a pistol was taking a little while, because everybody's hands are a different size, and you're not doing one-on-one instruction, and so you're taking them through the courseware and the curriculum, but there's a few different ways that you can teach these skills. You can show some PowerPoint slides, which I think is probably midway helpful. At least you're seeing something. You can demonstrate it yourself, which is pretty good. You can tell people how to do it, which is probably the least effective way to do it. Or you can come up with a training aid that helps people just do it. And so I'm all about the training aids. So here's just like one example. I developed this little 3D printed gizmo that can screw onto the rail of a training pistol, blue gun. So when you're teaching grip and you put the shooting hand on the gun, three fingers on the grip, trigger finger along the frame or the rail, your support hand, four fingers over three, right? Where do you put your thumb? Right on the thing that is 3D printed, and that just puts your thumb in the right place. You can take your hand off, put your hand on, your thumb always goes back to the right place if you put it on that thing, right? So we've turned teaching grip from a more difficult thing to explain to students really picking up on it very quickly.
Do you sell those? Is
Yeah,
that a an item that you've actually put on the market?
I'd love to. I wish I was that good of a businessman, but I mean, it's literally you can like screw it on and off with an Allen key.
I mean, people can't. This is an audio show, so I'm going to describe what you've got here. What it is essentially it's a rail-mounted thumb rest for your offhand, and that is assuming, and maybe you
You're
make a right and a
right-handed, this one,
left-handed
yeah.
version. Yeah, the version we're looking at is a right-handed version,
Yeah,
and
I have left-handed version.
all you'd have to do to make that, even better, quote unquote, would be add another pick rail on the bottom of it, and then you could keep your accessories on there too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that would be something you could absolutely sell.
Yeah, so I mean, just you're just on the pistol properly every time. So I also know what I'm doing, but I mean, I'm watching the success of my students with that. When we're teaching ammunition, so by the benefits of owning brass buyers and being a reloader, I have a lot of different brass, and so I worked with somebody who created a stand for me,
Very good.
and I took all these different pieces of brass and I mounted it to it and I had them labeled. And again, I know the audience isn't going to see what I'm talking about, but basically, if somebody in class says, well, what's the difference between 38 Special and 357? Well, they're right next to each other right here. Let's have that conversation. What's that huge thing on top? Why would I ever want to own one of those? Which of these costs the least amount of money per shot? We can have that conversation. We can also talk about rim fire versus center fire. So, just, again, developing training aids that make the class that much better for the students so they have a really good outcome. My favorite ones, again, sticking with ammo, and I did not create this. I found this and had somebody make these for me. But when you're talking about ammunition and you're talking about, well, what are the components of a cartridge and what is the firing sequence?
Yep.
Using some models that somebody can take apart and put back together, it's a 3D printed model. And when you're talking about, well, the firing pin strikes the primer, the what? Well, it's this little thing down here. It strikes this little circle on the end of the cartridge. Well, what's a primer look like? Well, here's a giant one. I can hand it to you and you can see what a primer looks like.
I'd be interested in buying those. I would be interested in buying those if you guys actually sell them or you knew the locations of those, because those are great
Hmm.
training aids.
There's actually those I got from a seller on Etsy. If you just go on Etsy and look up that as a training aid,
I'll order it tonight. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like them.
But so another exercise we do, I really like this one. And again, this is for new shooters, beginning shooters. We're talking about ammunition and we're talking about how do you select the correct ammunition for your gun. And the answer is you check the gun either on the barrel or the slide. So it'd be the
Yep.
barrel if it's, for example, an MNP. If it's a Glock, it'll be on the slide. You look at the head stamp of the cartridge. You look at the box. And then, of course, you can also look in your owner's manual. So one of the things I've done is collected a whole bunch of ammo
Oh,
boxes, just the cardboard sleeve, and I've laminated them. And I have a huge stack of these. They come in lots of different calibers. And as a part of the course, and this is above and beyond the curriculum that we're using, but I will hand a stack of these to each student, and I'll hand them a handful of dummy cartridges, and I'll hand them some empty magazines, and I will tell them, okay, I need you to organize the calibers. I need you to then load them into the correct magazine and put the magazine down on top of the correct laminated box.
do people get that wrong? Do they have struggle with that?
Well, what they really struggle with is, and I wouldn't say struggle, what they find most difficult is where the heck on the box does it say what the caliber is? These boxes might look very identical. One of these might be 40 versus 45. You have to
Right.
read the box, right? The whole point of the exercise is to read the box, read the cartridge, and then have a magazine there that you can load. And some students, I would say uh, the most one I don't know how to describe it. The one they get the wrong the most is they'll mix up 380 and 9 millimeter. They'll put the 380 dummy
Sure.
cartridges in the 9 millimeter
Hmm.
magazine, which I think is a completely legitimate thing for a new shooter to accidentally do.
I would think it'd be 380 and 38 special, but I can, obviously one's rimmed a lot longer and so on and so forth. But just
Right.
because the numbers are the same and the zero on the end of the 30.38 doesn't matter, but it does. Yeah, that would be where I would think the errors would be. How
Oh
much
no,
of
I mean
this?
loading the magazine. I mean they
Oh,
take
you
the
mean actually
380 dummy
loading?
cartridges.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're
Oh,
actually
well, that's
loading
not
the
gonna,
dummy
yeah.
cartridges into a magazine and then putting that on top of the box. And so they're matching everything up, the ammo, the magazine, and the
Okay.
writing on the box. And so I'll get some 380s loaded into a 9 millimeter magazine. But again, I mean, totally understandable.
Sure.
Right.
I have a two-part question here. So
Hmm.
it's kind of a positive and a negative. And if there's positives, you can mention names, and if there's negatives, I would request that you don't. But I'm assuming that you still, also train yourself and you take classes,
I do.
and maybe some of your ideas on training aids and things have been inspired by either positives or deficiencies that you've seen in other classes. And if you want to mention who you think other good trainers are, you can go ahead and do that. But have you also experienced what, at least in the Navy, we would refer to as negative training? And negative training would be things that run counter to doctrine or things that
Sure.
run counter to best practices.
Hmm.
And perhaps you have an example or two of that.
Yeah, sure. Actually, fun story wasn't fun live in person, but it turns out to be a fun story because I tell it to almost all my students who come in for pistol class. It's not uncommon that retired veterans will take my class, either to learn a new skill or just to take a class, or that. I mean, we've had every branch of the military. I've had a retired IDF. These people, tell us they have great stories during lunch. Retired older guy, retired Army. I don't remember what his job was in the Army. He had told me about it. But anyway, when we were differentiating grip for semi-auto versus revolver, he immediately started lecturing me on the teacup uh, grip position for revolver. And in the moment, I wasn't expecting somebody to start actually arguing with me that I'm teaching grip incorrectly.
You mean he was an advocate of teacup?
His grandpa taught him teacup, and his dad shot teacup, and that's just how he learned how to shoot a revolver. So
Ugh.
I'm pretty good at dancing in these scenarios. So, I know how to listen to a customer and hear them out and, formulate, some type of feedback. So I think that meets your criteria for a negative training example. The path I went down was if you're already familiar with that and you're accurate with that and you feel like you'll be successful on the range today with that, by all means, please do it that way. I'm not here to, change what, your beliefs in this, but what I would suggest to you is that that's a very difficult, unsupported position because you're really relying on your shooting hand to also be the support. And the shooting hand has to do two things. It has to hold the gun and it has to operate the trigger. So it can't do 100% of the holding, and it also can't do 100% of the operating the trigger. It has to do a combination of both. And if you're not gripping the gun in what would be more of a standard two-handed grip, you're selling yourself short. But, we'll see what happens when we get out on the range, right? If you're comfortable that way, then do it that way.
Well, for second shot follow up, it's terrible. I mean, for one shot, it might be fine, but for second shot follow ups, that's not a.
Mhm. Well, and for a basic pistol class like NRA Basics of Pistol Shooting, follow-up shot, yes, through fundamentals and follow through and everything, you should be in a good position to do a follow-up shot. But we're not doing self-defense shooting. We're not doing shot timer, par time, or anything in that course. It's a basics course. So, being able to readjust your position, your hand position, and re-aim and get back on target is, totally legitimate in that class.
If people don't know what a teacup hold is, I would recommend that you look up any police shows from like the late 60s all the way through perhaps the early 80s and in the 70s and things like that. You see these examples of, holding the basically cupping the bottom of your support, or you're cupping your support hand in order to hold your primary hand, which doesn't do much at all for recoil or second shot recovery. So it's fallen out of favor by a long, long, long time.
Hmm. So typically, when we get out on the range, anybody who has preconceived ideas of, something that we're not teaching, I ask them to show it to me because I love learning, and I love learning, like I mentioned, for my own skill set, but also learning to teach. And so, if there's something that I can learn from a student, then I want to. And because the students are the ones that are going to have the best feedback. Some students come to class and they're just a sponge. They want to absorb everything. But some students come to class, last basics of pistol shooting that I taught, which was in early January. One of the people that came to the course, never met him before, but he's a competitive shooter. And the reason he was taking the course is that he's actually going through the process of becoming an NRA instructor. So
Hmm.
he needed to get the prerequisite out of the way. He was a phenomenal shooter, right? And I could tell that when we were going through exercises in the classroom and being a basics course, he was nodding off. He wasn't falling asleep, but he already knew what he needed to do, and he proved that. When we got out on the range, in 5 minutes, he knocked out all four levels of the NRA targets. He was shooting instructor level distance at an incredibly tight group, within like the first 5-10 minutes of being out on the range. So now I'm asking him questions like,
Mhm.
okay, how do you do that well? And see if I can pick some things up from him. Oh, there's one other training aid I should mention. And again, a lot of these things have been self-inspired. The 3D printed ammo again is something I bought from somebody on Etsy, but one of the topics in the NRA Basics of Pistol Shooting when we're talking about fundamentals is arc of movement. It's that natural movement that you have in your arms that you can't avoid, right? If somebody said to you, hold your arm out perfectly straight in front of you and don't move it at all, it's physically impossible. It's going to wiggle a little bit, right? And
Right.
arc of movement definitely affects shot placement. So to help students in the classroom understand arc of movement a little bit better, we've bought some of those inexpensive, they're like thin Picatinny rail lasers that you can just mount underneath any semi-automatic pistol. And what we'll do in the classroom is I'll snap a few of those onto the training pistols and have students stand uh, 10, 15 feet away from one of our safe zone targets in the classroom and try and hold the laser on the NRA logo, right? And so that way they can see, okay, that's your arc of movement. When we get out on the range, expect that to be the best you can do today as far as arc of movement. So if you're not, knocking out, the X directly in the center of the bullseye, part of it is, just how your body's built, how God made you. And the way you work around that is practice. The more you come to the range, the more you'll be able to work your arc of movement out of your end results. But for today, you should just know that you're that way.
I was going to say, what's a more expensive way to do that, guys? But it's also a very objective. Ken, you know the answer to this, right?
The Mantis Titan X. Uh,
And the X10 Elite attachment to your regular gun.
that's true. We are evaluating and we'll be putting a show on probably soon about the Mantis Titan X, which is basically a Glock 17
Hmm.
Gen 4 or 5 probably. Now they're up to X and 6 and whatever else. But it's basically a full-size Glock with the built-in Mantis motion sensor, the highly sensitive motion sensor, and a laser and a decent trigger and a removable weighted magazine, so you can do magazine reload timings and so forth. It's and the software, the Mantis X or the Mantis software, is phenomenal. I'm still exploring the myriad of options and games and training scenarios from holster draws and all sorts of things.
And they keep
And
adding to it all the
I
time.
know,
So
no, they keep
it's
adding to it, and
right.
I keep going, oh, gee, I haven't tried this one yet, and I'm having a great time with it, and I'm going to be introducing it to some of the people in the shooting socials and the Guns and Moses training as well.
It
So
occurred. Oh, I'm sorry. It occurs to me too that with the constant on laser that you're talking about, Jeff, that you could also use that for teaching people not to flag others.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
If that arc of movement, I mean, in the totality, let's say from going from the holster to presentation or just carrying the thing around is sweeping through your students, you can call them on that.
Oh, so I wanted to touch on the other type of training that we do. So the other thing we do is community events, and this is where we get into the charity aspect of our training. So once a month, we have a 2-hour community event at a local range. Now, I'm fairly blessed here where I live that there are some ranges that actually have, these are indoor ranges that have two ranges in their facility. One that is sort of the general use, you walk in, pay your money, and you get to go out on the range. And then they'll have what I like to refer to as more of like the private range or the training range. It's a separate range, either in a different part of the building or walled off next door to the general use range where we can bring in students and we have or they have good programs for NRA, USCCA, and other certified instructors to rent those facilities at a upfront known cost. There's a couple ranges around here. Obviously, I have instructor insurance. I have COIs on file with multiple ranges near where I live. So, if one's busy, I can use a different one. But we still get that private range time experience indoors where, we can work with the students. And so for our community events, we're using those private ranges to hold a community event. Now, those ranges are much smaller. So the typically like 5 lanes, maybe 6 lanes. And when I say smaller, I'm talking about lanes. One of them in particular is 5 lanes, but is actually 90 feet long and very well lit and has its own air system and everything. It's really nice. But we'll use those so we can have our own activity in that room. Now, of course, we're on camera. The RSOs, at the range, of course, are watching us and this and that, right? But we do have our own area. People can come to those events either at no cost or for a donation. And what we're doing is essentially creating a community event that simulates what would it be like if you just went to the range, right? Oh, I'm going to the range. I've never shot a lever action rifle before. How do I do that? Just come to one of our community. Come to the one next week. You want to shoot a lever action? We've got a Henry student rifle for you, right? Or I've never shot. I know this isn't a topic for every state, but I've never shot an SBR. Oh, well, just come to our community event. We have an SBR in 9 millimeter. You're gonna love it, right? So, what I need to work on a particular skill. So what we do is we'll break down our participants into what skills they're trying to work on. if they're looking to work on marksmanship skills, then we just work on the NRA civilian marksmanship program book. That's the book you would get if you took any NRA course. And we'll just do the drills in that book. And the good news with those drills is not only do they help you with your fundamentals, but they are not quick. And a lot of them you have to repeat many times. Sometimes one of those drills is, okay, you have to do this 10, you have to, weak hand, 5 shots, 6-inch group, repeat 10 times, something like that, right? So it does take up some time. And then other people may want to work on a self-defense skill. Well, those are a little bit trickier to work on in a stall, because you're behind the stall and you've got your little table there. But there are some skills that we can work on that are in the course of fire for NRA basic personal protection in the home. Has a few drills that you can work on from behind a stall. And there's a few that are my favorite because it's a good teaching moment for students with some of these, for them to see, am I just a good stationary shooter, or, what is the reality of my skill set if I have to move my arm, or, come up from low ready or some, just introducing a little bit of movement and then check to see just how good they are with that just smidge of extra movement in their hand. So we'll work on self-defense skills that way as well. And literally we'll do all these things. So somebody says, "Hey, I just got this brand new whatever micro compact something, and I put a red dot on it, and it's installed, but it's not zeroed." Great, we have a bench rest. Come and we'll work on zeroing your red dot, and we'll spend whatever time you need there just doing that. And will it be 100% by the end of it? No, but it'll be 85, 90%. So we can do that. We won't install. I should give a disclaimer. We are not gunsmithing. We're definitely not taking pistols apart on the range. If you come to the range with your pistol, a brand new red dot installed on it, it's installed properly, and you say, "I want to zero it," we will absolutely help you with that. If you come to the range with your pistol and your brand new red dot in the original manufacturer's box and say, "I need this thing installed so I can zero it," the answer is you need to have to already have it installed on the range. We're not taking our eyes off the firing line to install red dots. And we're, while I'm going to say we're not gunsmiths. Obviously, installing a red dot does not require a great deal of skill, but we're not here to work on your
No, that's a
pistol.
waste of time. I mean,
Yeah,
you're wasting other people's time because you're doing probably group classes, and
right.
spending your time doing that is not what other people came to experience. Uh,
We have a very, very, very high I don't know what you'd call it, reoccurring or reattendance. The people that come to our community events tend to come back. So where you go to like a full day course, you go to that course and then the course is over. So maybe you come to the next course. But our community events, we truly are building some community around those events.
for those repeat customers, are they coming back? Well, okay, it's a good experience, and maybe it didn't cost them much, maybe it cost them nothing. But I assume that part of this is their maybe by metrics that you keep, because you said you're a data person, that they are having their progress tracked, and maybe there's incentives for improvement or something like that, accessibility to better classes. Perhaps you're helping them with their CCW class, which may have different requirements in your state, and perhaps your CCW in Ohio extends to other states. How are you maybe getting the word out to attract new students and retain the ones you've got?
So we have a lot of word of mouth and we do some advertising on Facebook, but to be honest, we need to do a better job of that. We're not, I mean, so High Value Training Academy has been around since 2023, but as far as really having the bandwidth and some donations to be able to engage with the community in a meaningful way, that really started about 4 or 5 months ago for us.
Oh,
Um,
really new.
well, we've been teaching classes. I've been teaching classes under the High Value Training Academy badge for years. And I've been doing very small group community events for free and or for donations for years. But as far as really getting the word out in a big way and making ourselves known to the community and actively, like I mentioned, we have a board member who's focused on donations and fundraising. That's probably the last 4 or 5 months that we're really picking up steam. And it all has to do with, like you mentioned before, there are real costs to doing these things. And so there's the things you can do at the beginning, like with any organization, with the limited funds that you have. And as funds, become more available, then you can do more things. Like, how do we afford to do a community event for 2 hours where we're renting a private range for our own event for 2 hours for students who are going to register and come, and their instruction, their range time, and their targets are included. They can use our pistols. Like, for some of these people, unless they choose to make a donation, their only true out-of-pocket cost is ammunition. So how do we do that? Well, we had to, raise funds to be able to schedule all of 2026 to do that. But we also extend some our donations to our full day classes. So I mentioned before, if you register for a class, take a class, that's not a charitable contribution, that's a course fee.
That's a fee.
Right. But we keep our course fees insanely low. So NRA Basics of Pistol Shooting, which, if taught properly, may meet the Ohio Revised Code for applying for a CCW permit in Ohio. We will use some of our funds to get the cost of that class down to about $80 to $85 per student.
Oh,
Our basics of rifle shooting, we treat it a little bit differently because rifle shooting extends to youth. And if you look at scouting programs and youth rifle clubs, when you're talking pistols and handguns and self-defense, you're not teaching youth. So what we'll do for basics of rifle shooting is we keep our course consistently priced at $125 per student. However, what we use our funds for is any parent who wants to bring their child, and the age range for that is, what are the range rules? So if the youth, child, teenager is of an age that the range will allow them to be on range with a parent who signs the range waiver, then we'll have them in class. My only criteria for class is, will they sit through class? But as far as, are they allowed on the range, that is a range rule and a range policy associated with the range waiver. So we will do, your youth student is 100% free of charge with paid attending parent. So you cannot drop your kids off with us and have them take free rifle classes. But right.
yeah. Ugh.
But if you want to take our class and you want to bring your 14-year-old son, daughter to class, they're 100% free. And when I say free, I mean we are covering their books, obviously their range time. They can use all of our student rifles, and we will give each one of those students a box of 50 22 LRs to use with our student rifles. So the youth are 100% free with paid attending parent. I've had people ask me, well, what if I want to bring two of my kids? What if I want to bring my kid and my niece or my nephew? Yeah, please, just bring them. Okay, paid attending parent, as long as they can sit through class. So if after 5 minutes they need to go play games on their iPhone, they're not a good candidate. But if they can sit through a full day class and you feel like they'll be okay out on the range, then yeah, I mean, just bring them. We're not trying to build limits here. We're trying to provide firearms safety education to the community. So that's one way that we extend our charitableness, I guess, to some of the full day classes. And then we also get requests from like religious groups, churches and synagogues. I've had college fraternities hit me up, what can we do for them on a limited budget? So
And they showed up sober?
they better show up sober.
Well, I was in one, so like, you know.
Humor in alcohol and firearms do not mix.
Not a great, yeah, yeah. I never recommended that we went to a range after a party or something like that, or as an initiation event either. That would be maybe we get you probably in trouble.
Sure, yeah. Well, it will definitely get you in trouble here in Ohio. It's a zero tolerance policy.
Yeah. So what? So why would someone, it sounds like you've already kind of gone over it by virtue of the creativity you've got and things like that, in your training aids and how you make the experience better. But why shouldn't, I mean, if this is a no cost class and but it still has the value of a paid class. Okay, if I'm teaching, I have a sister-in-law who's interested in learning to shoot. Why not just go with me to the range? Why not just go with a friend who used to be a cop? Why not just go with a relative who used to be in the military? What's the benefit of using a professional training organization like yours?
Sure. Well, if you're thinking about, I just want to try this. I don't know that I want to go to a full day class, but in my head, I've been thinking about going to the range. I think, unfortunately, it's something that people don't talk enough about. So, like, if you're 16 and you go to your parents and you say, "Hey, mom, dad, I want to go do something dangerous today. I want to learn how to drive a car, but I'm committed to learning how to do it, earning my license, and I will be a safe driver. I'll stay in my lane. I won't speed. I will use my turn signals, right?" And we practice that every day. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I want to go do this dangerous thing driving a car. If you said, well, hey, mom, dad, I want to go skydiving, one parent might say, oh, wow, that's awesome. And the other parent's going to say, what are you, crazy? You could injure yourself. But when it comes to people thinking about maybe going to the range for the first time, there's a lot of people that just simply don't articulate that because maybe their family, their social circle doesn't have the knowledge and expertise, or maybe their family or social circle, it's just not a topic. Like if you bring it up, you're, might face some ridicule for just mentioning it. So I look at our community events as a way for people, especially new shooters, to have this experience in a way in which they don't even really have to spend a lot of money to do it. Because if you think about what it costs just to go to the range, let's say I'm a new shooter, I've never done this before, and I want to go to the range for the first time. I'm paying to rent the stall. I'm renting a pistol. I'm buying a box of ammo and maybe paying for somebody to come out on the range with me to show me how the heck to do this because I've never done it before and I've heard that it's dangerous. I've seen enough movies and TV shows. So we're trying to take all of that off the table and we want to get those people. When I say we have very high retention rate, reoccurring students at our community events, they are bringing their family members. They're bringing the aunt who is in town for holidays. Their brother who shotguns once 6 years ago but hasn't done it in a while. They're bringing that person. And so what I would say is, why people would want to come to us is, one, again, we're very outcome focused. That's the most important thing to me. And I say it to students is education, empowerment, and fun.
So you
Uh,
are objectively tracking progress and letting people see that feedback, like how they did better, or you have some way to maybe encourage them by virtue of improved skills.
yeah, so students who come to the community events who want to focus on marksmanship, we're using the NRA Civilian Marksmanship Guide for drills. And on the NRA's website, you can download a tracker. So I downloaded that tracker. I've converted it to an Excel spreadsheet, which it's a very basic spreadsheet. And what I'll do for students is they're going through the marksmanship program. I will track their progress for them, so they don't have to do that. Now they're welcome to do that on their own, but I'll track that for them as well. So when they earn a certain level, they may want to go onto the NRA website and buy the patch and the pin associated with that, right? I believe it's only distinguished marksman that requires actually having an NRA instructor
Yeah,
validate
Yeah,
your
that,
results. The other
yeah.
ones are self-paced. So I have one student that comes to work on marksmanship skills at our community events, and then she also works on her marksmanship skills on her own. And then when she comes back to the one of our community events once a month, she's already made other progress, right? And so we kind of manage progress that way. I don't know how we would do this, like, how we would scale that long term, right? Because it is done manually today. But I mean, we are open to any ideas on how to better track progress. When it comes to self-defense skills, we're not really tracking progress. What we're doing is we're giving people a little bit of an extra stressor, like I mentioned, like moving your hands, like coming up from a low ready position or something like that. And we're just working on shot placement for some of those skills and being accountable to your fundamentals. When we're talking about self-defense, I always say being accountable to your fundamentals because where your shots go matters a lot,
Yep.
right? And so we're really just pushing the fundamentals. We're not really writing down progress.
So how do you are you then deciding on behalf of the students what and as an instructor, I'm saying you are qualified to make this decision, but
Mhm.
are you deciding on their behalf what they need to learn, or are you getting feedback that's saying this is what I want to learn, and then trying to accommodate what the student's actual voiced interest is?
Yeah, we ask them ahead of time, do you want to work on marksmanship or self-defense? And then we'll give them some drills. If it's marksmanship, we use the book, like I mentioned. So it's very well documented, detailed, progress that you need to make. If they say they want to work on self-defense, we would start with very basic drills that, again, is just a little bit more movement than just stationary isosceles standing position shooting, see how they do, and then work on fundamentals to refine that, and then just leverage the course of fire from courses like personal protection in the home, personal protection outside the home, borrow what we can from those courses of fire to practice at the indoor range. We can't do them all at the indoor range, but some of them we can do safely and within the guidelines of how the range operates. The thing I want to close with for high value training is, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're looking to grow and be much bigger. We have aspirations of having our own training facility. We're kind of imagining a facility that maybe other instructors would also want to use. That, maybe it's not a public range, maybe it's a dedicated training facility where law enforcement could borrow it, and other NRA, USCCA instructors could come in and use it for their courses as well. We definitely are thinking about, could we put a range in it? Can we have our own range and have more control of the types of training that we can do by having control of our own range? And then how do we extend this to outdoors, leveraging the vast number of outdoor ranges that we have for sure here in the area? So we have a lot of ideas, and we are anxious to grow and anxious to get in front of as many students as possible.
Well, are you anxious to grow in the context of exporting this to other states and maybe perhaps I'm not saying literally franchise or license the model, but something along those lines that would allow this type of opportunity to exist in other places?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that I'm probably least astute of uh, understanding about charity organizations is how to build a war chest of funds that allow you to expand that way. Right? It's different than a for-profit business where you're thinking, okay, I'm going to open my doors, I'm going to sell a thing, product or service that's going to generate profit for me, and then I'm going to have a break-even period where I'm gonna run this thing temporarily at a loss until we can break even and until we can start being cash flow positive and all of that. When we look at a training organization, I would love to be able to do that. I would love to meet like-minded people who feel like that there is uh, a lot of value in not just the training, but the student outcomes, and in a way in which we're really targeting the communities where people, quite frankly, might not be able to afford training. And that's actually in our mission statement. If you're legally allowed to own a firearm, we want to train you, regardless of your ability to pay full price for a class. So if that is exportable somehow, I would love to learn how to export it, and I'd love to have the donations and contributions to be able to do that.
So, word to our listeners, if there's anybody out there who can help along with this, I think I should look over at my wife who's sitting across the desk at me, who is a CPA, whether or not labor that is donated to a nonprofit organization is something that's deductible. Oh, she's shaking her head no.
Basis taxpayer, no.
Cash basis taxpayer, nope, can't do that. But at least
Mhm.
anything monetarily that they do, or, at least they'll be doing the right thing for the community.
Right, right. Oh, that I guess I should have mentioned as well. I'm on the board. The founder of High Value Training, but I'm also a board member. As a board member, I don't financially benefit at all from High Value Training. I have taken no money home from this organization. It all gets put back into what else can we do for the community. At some point, maybe I won't be a board member. Maybe I could be a paid instructor or something like that. But right now, I am donating. This is my cause. I am donating my time to this cause, and the planetary size benefits I get from it is truly all in the student outcomes.
And you see, guys, that's why we wanted Jeff on the show, having, again, not directly experienced his training because of the factor of distance, being in Southern California. I don't get to Ohio very often, but at the same time, this is a unique opportunity to talk to someone who is, I'm not disparaging people who do things for profit. I mean, obviously,
No, not at all. Not at
yeah,
all.
but this is really a unique opportunity to talk to someone who's doing this because it's the right thing to do and not with a business angle. But again, hey, we're all capitalists here, so we don't disparage that. Ken, any final comments for Jeff as we close out?
No, nothing in particular. Really enjoy the afternoon of talking to you. So this was great.
Exactly. All right.